From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Nicaraguan Foreign Minister Denis Moncada has announced a temporary stop to the operations of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights in the country. The special monitoring body for Nicaragua and the interdisciplinary group of independent experts are also temporarily ceasing operations. Moncada said that the suspension of these agencies, backed by the Organization of American States, will last until interference attempts against Nicaragua stop and the conditions for respect and sovereignty are re-established. Ecuador's workers' unions rejected the new economic measures which were announced by the government of Lenin Moreno on Tuesday. The announcements include another hike in gasoline prices and the elimination of 25,000 public jobs. Some critics, including Ecuador's Citizens' Revolution movement, have said this represents a neoliberal shift in the country's policies.
We oppose to the price increases to gas. We condemn the statements of the Minister of Finance when he says that basic necessity products are not transported in vehicles which use gasolina extra and says that their price will not rise. Speculation will be generated and will in turn increase the cost of products of basic necessity in our country.
Right now, Ecuadorians are living a political crisis, an economic crisis, and a social crisis that comes as a consequence. This crisis is not being provoked by workers nor the Ecuadorian people, the least protected people. This crisis is being provoked by large business owning groups in partnerships with sections of the government. They think that once again, it is us who are responsible for creating this crisis. At no point are us, workers, responsible for causing this economic crisis.
Ecuador's National Assembly has approved several reforms to the communication law passed 5 years ago by the government of Rafael Correa. Our correspondent in Quito, Denis Herrera, has the details.
After 6 hours of debate and with the intervention of more than 30 Assembly members, the reform bill of the communication law has been approved with 75 votes in favor. The bill modifies 76% of the law that has been in place since 2013, when it was first passed by the National Assembly.
64 articles have been modified, and 41 have remained in the form they were in the original communication law. The benefits of this new communication law are the following. We eliminated deontological norms in order to be aligned with the principles of the right to freedom of expression. We prohibited prior censorship by authorities and public officials, and they can no longer decide whether content should be disseminated or not. It will also eliminate the defamation of people, as this violates individual and collective rights to receive quality information. We've also included an article that will guarantee state protection for communication workers.
One of the points under discussion was self-regulation in the media. The Citizen Revolution movement warned that this puts the press at risk.
What is happening with these reforms is that it goes straight to a judicialization of the communication, because all types of administrative measures are removed within the reforms of the law of the communication. This implies that there will be no conciliation measures for citizens that can be established in the event that rights are violated, and citizens will have to go directly to the judicialization of the communication, putting in defense the rights not only of the citizenship, but also of the journalists and workers of the communication as well as the media.
The debate was joined by different sectors of the communication industry, such as the community media, which expressed their total rejection of new competition for radio and television frequencies.
This is an unconstitutional process. Also, the distribution of media outlets that before were 34% for community, 33% for private, and 33% for public has also been modified. The 33% for public media has been eliminated and has been added to the private media. This has been a process that we have been denouncing for some time now.
Among the most important modifications is the elimination of the Superintendency of Information and Communication Supercom. The Council for Regulation, Development, and Promotion of Information and Communication, Cordicom, will be responsible for monitoring and controlling competition, but will not able to impose financial sanctions. The organization will instead make technical reports when finding discriminatory, violent, or sexually explicit information. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
And Brazil's President Michel Temer has been charged of alleged corruption and money laundering by the Prosecutor General. An investigation against Temer revealed he had taken bribes by companies in exchange for the extension of 2 government port contracts. Among these were Rodrimar, a shipping and logistics company which is believed to have paid bribes to Temer, amounting to almost $8 million. Temer can only be tried while president if Brazil's lower house of Congress votes to allow a trial to proceed, which is unlikely to happen before he leaves office on January 1st. Former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will remain in prison. The President of the Supreme Court, Minister Dias Toffoli, has annulled a decision to release detainees convicted in a second legal stance. Lula and other people who are incarcerated but have not yet exhausted their appeals processes will remain behind bars. Earlier, a Supreme Court judge ruled that all prisoners awaiting a judgment on their second appeal should be freed. Lula's attorneys had called for his immediate release. The former president has been jailed since April 2018. Mexican authorities are investigating the death of 2 Honduran teenagers who were stabbed over the weekend. The victims were reportedly between 16 and 17 years old. Their injuries were consistent with a knife attack and strangulation. According to an initial investigation, the victims and the assailants had spoken about trading money for sex. The Honduran ambassador confirmed the pair had joined the migrant caravan back in October. The Mexican government has announced its new migration policy will focus on respecting human rights and social development. The policy will be in accordance with the recently adopted United Nations Migration Pact. The Mexican government will expand its existing special border labor visa program for Guatemala and Belize to El Salvador and Honduras. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he plans to grant thousands of humanitarian visas to members of the migrant caravan currently waiting to enter the United States in Tijuana.
The 2 fundamental axes of this new migration policy, human rights on the one hand, and that we cooperate and collaborate to trigger development in neighboring Central American countries.
Mexico and the U.S. have signed a joint plan to improve the living conditions of Central American migrants. Let's hear from our correspondent Pablo Pérez on this.
Today, the Mexican foreign minister announced a binational plan with the United States in which Mexico has committed to invest $35 billion for the coming years in Mexico, Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. These are the countries with the largest migrant flows. The intention is to support the economic development of the region to better the living conditions of the citizens of these countries. This in order to stop the massive migrant flow. This means that Mexico will invest $35 billion, while the U.S. will invest $5.8 billion in Central America. This is one of the primary actions the United States is taking to fight immigration and goes against the attacks and statements repeated by the U.S. president.
Pablo Pérez from Mexico, and we have more stories coming up. We'll be back.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on culture, innovation, conservation, human well-being. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with Atomun. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identities on By gender, cultural manifestations, they are in all its forms and the stories of real lives. Every day we feature a wide variety of content, only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
Welcome back. Paraguay's indigenous communities and farming organizations say they are being displaced from their lands to make way for soy monoculture farming. Our correspondent in Asunción, Osvaldo Sayas, tells us more.
Displaced communities are now camping in the city centre of Asunción. Campesino and indigenous organisations will meet with the Paraguayan government to discuss land and agricultural issues. Farmers groups say that there is a crisis in the countryside due to monoculture farming. Businesses, mainly from Brazil, are planting soy indiscriminately, as it is the most valuable crop in Paraguay. These monocultures take land away from traditional farmers and indigenous communities, and social organizations are asking the government to take action on the issue. The Paraguayan constitution says that agricultural reforms should be dealt with at state level. There have been many complaints from indigenous farmers saying that they have been removed from their land. They are demanding a solution to this situation. The meeting between indigenous communities, farming organizations and the government will be held on Thursday morning.
That's our correspondent Osvaldo Sayas from Asunción. And clashes between protesters and police have taken place in Chile, with police using tear gas. Hundreds rallied through the streets of Santiago to support the Valparaíso dock workers who have been on strike since November. Workers are demanding a bonus and better working conditions. At the same time, protests in support of the Mapuche indigenous population also took place. Joined by human rights activists, they demanded justice over the killing of young Mapuche Camilo Catrillanca at the hands of the police. And a video has emerged showing the last few seconds of the life of Camilo Catrillanca before he was assassinated in Chile. The lawyer for the Mapuche, Patricio Sepúlveda, handed over the video evidence to the prosecutor in Temuco. The video shows a policeman patrolling Coyipulli Road while a helicopter is hovering over the area. The footage contradicts a statement made by the head of the police, who said evidence of police presence in the area that day had been destroyed. On December 19, Chile observes the National Day Against Femicide. Many women took part in cultural activities, mostly in memory of Javiera Niera Oportus, a 6-year-old girl murdered by her father 13 years ago. Our correspondent in Santiago, Tiare Valenzuela, has more on this.
To take out women from the Red Chronicle and put her in the feminist fight for resistance. This is what all feminist movements aspire to, especially the group called 19th of December that seeks called the National Day Against Femicide, a crime that in Chile is only classified when committed by a couple or spouse. But there are hate crimes against women directed at them for being women. And that is what they are fighting for, to have these crimes called femicides. Because there are a blacklist of many women who aren't visible in this list of official femicides in the country. A special day in which the leader of this group, Claudia Neira, lost her child, Javiera, murdered by her biological father on the 19th of December. A date also for the commemoration of women killed by hate crimes for just being women, Many of them have resisted, called police and called many other institutions, but haven't been heard, and many finally been killed, making longer the unfortunate list of gender crimes in our country.
Tiare Valenzuela from Chile. Now to Uruguay and China. They have signed a technical and economic cooperation agreement to mark 30 years of diplomatic relations. The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Rodolfo Noboa, said the agreement will facilitate the exchange of knowledge and skills. China will donate over $3 million in arts and culture to the South American nation.
We want to celebrate the People's Republic of China's relationship as a main trading partner of Uruguay.
Diplomatic ties with China have reached 30 years. Within the 3 decades, bilateral ties have been characterized by mutual respect, equal treatment and mutual benefit.
Milagros Sala, the Argentinian social and indigenous leader, is in the middle of her 4th trial. Our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Sabrina Roth, explains.
The hearings continue in the 4th trial against Argentinian indigenous leader Milagros Sala in the case known as the 2007 Azopardo shooting. The prosecutor has recommended a 12-year jail sentence for Sala. She's accused of being the co-conspirator in the murder of neighborhood leader Alberto Cardozo. The main witness, Jorge Rafael Paz, is believed to have lied to the court on numerous occasions, and his is the only testimony against her. He claimed that in a meeting the day before, Milagros Sala ordered Cardozo to be killed. But everybody else giving testimony, even those who he said took part in the meeting, denied that meeting ever took place. The hearings continue next week, and the following week the final sentence is expected to be delivered.
Sabrina Roth from Argentina. And archaeologists in Peru have discovered an ancient human sacrifice site believed to have been created by the Wari civilization. This site dates back to between 600 and 1000 CE in the Wari zone. The discovery will prompt the rethinking of current theories about pre-Inca civilizations, particularly between the Mochica, Cajamarca, and Wari tribes. We're taking one last break, but stay with us.
In a world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deep into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on Telesur. Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur. An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Friday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin is holding an annual news conference to talk about the country's economic progress and future plans. These are live images of the conference, where he's taking questions from journalists on various subjects. He also highlighted that the country needs to innovate in technology to continue growing. Putin added that without a breakthrough in technology, the country has no future.
We have come up with 12 national projects and an infrastructure development plan. I'll recall the main areas of that plan: healthcare, education and science, which is human capital. Without this, no breakthrough is possible, nothing will happen. Second is output and economy. All the economic things are in that blueprint. And second thing includes digital economy and the robo-techniques and infrastructure as well.
The Saudi-led coalition has broken the ceasefire in Yemen's Hodeidah port by striking the Al-Mansar village. 4 people were wounded, including a child. A truce between the warring parties was reached last week in Sweden, was brokered by the United Nations. It was reported that although the ceasefire started on shaky grounds, it was holding up. However, the Saudi coalition has resumed their bombardment. And this is a story that we've been covering for the past days. Now, the mother of the 2-year-old child with a rare brain disease has finally arrived in the United States from Yemen, 17 months after she first applied for a visa. Shaima Suile is a Yemeni national and therefore was not allowed to enter the U.S. due to a ban targeting people from Muslim-majority countries. Her child, Abdullah Hassan, is not expected to survive, but the family has refused to remove him from life support until his mother sees him.
I want to thank CARE, Zat, Basim, and his crew member, the media, elected officials, and people all over the world for their support. This is a difficult time for our family, but we are blessed to be together. I ask you to respect our privacy as we go to be with our son again. The Muslims ban has hurt Yemen Americans' families and need to end. Thank you.
Newspapers in Madagascar are predicting a victory for Andry Rajoelina in Wednesday's presidential elections. With about only 6% of the votes counted, Rajoelina is leading with 57% against Ravalomanana's 43%. While polls closed on Wednesday evening, the count could be tense, as the first significant results are due by next week. The United Nations High Commission for Refugees is appealing for $2.7 billion to provide humanitarian assistance for the South Sudanese refugee crisis. The South Sudan refugee situation is believed to be the worst in Africa, as more than 2.5 million displaced refugees are struggling to survive. By the end of next year, the UNHCR estimates that just under 3 million people will have fled South Sudan. Around 1.9 million are internally displaced due to the ongoing war. Uganda's border with the Democratic Republic of Congo remains on high alert as authorities increase their efforts to stop an Ebola outbreak. People crossing the border have to wash their hands and shoes in chlorinated water. They have also to take their temperature for signs of fever before they are allowed to cross into Uganda. More than 300 people have died from Ebola since the Democratic Republic of Congo declared a new outbreak in August.
We have established 6 screening points at the main point of entry called Mbondwe, where we do screening, and on a daily basis, on a very busy day, we go as far as 30 people screened. Of course, we have also established other screening points. You know, our border with the DRC is so porous, and we've managed to add another 5 screening points, besides the main point of entry, which is in Mbondwe.
A French court has approved the takeover of the Ascoval steelworkers in northern France by a Franco-Belgian company, saving almost 300 jobs. The takeover will take place early next year, ending almost a year-long search for a buyer. The factory was at risk of closing down after the company owning the steel mill was liquidated in February 2018. Workers staged several protests throughout the year, calling on the government to save it. The first post-bailout budget has been approved by the Greek parliament. It includes some social measures and leaves out pension reduction. Our correspondent in Greece, Hibai Arbide, brings us the details.
Buenas tardes, saludos a toda nuestra audiencia. El Parlamento griego.
With 154 votes in favor, the 2019 budget has been approved by Parliament. All lawmakers from the Syriza government coalition voted in favor, as well as an independent member of Parliament and a Center Union representative. Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras said that this budget is a political success, as it does not include the pension cut that the Troika had decided on for 2019 and 2020. In August 2018, the Troika imposed a new fiscal adjustment to pensions for the 14th time. However, it has not been included in the budget because the creditors accepted the forecast set out by the Greek government, which said that the Greece economy will grow by 2.5% next year, with a GDP surplus of 3.6%, and that unemployment will drop from its current level of 18% to 16%. The opposition have said that this is the final budget to be presented by Tsipras and his government, as the right wing will win next year's elections.
Hibai Arbide from Athens. And Christmas decorations are lighting up Syria's capital, Damascus. The city is marking its first holiday season since the government regained control of a majority of the country. A 30-meter-high Christmas tree has been set up in the city's center. The decorations are bringing light back to the capital after 7 years of civil war. With that, we come to the end of this news brief, but this and other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. For our viewers in Africa, we are on StarSat channel 461 in South Africa and 539 in Nigeria, and we're on social media as well. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.